Welcome to the first episode of the Economy and State podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin Sievers.
And I'm your other host, Sam Brandhoover. Ben and I both want to thank any listeners for being here, but we also understand that you may not know what to expect, and we can't have that. So, Ben, do we have an elevator pitch?
Yeah, of course. Our main objective of this podcast is to fill a void that we see in modern discourse. Most people are so focused on the goals of certain policies, but they never delve into the real consequences. There's a difference between the ideal results and the actual results of policies. So we are going to bring an economic approach to understanding society and politics that you do not get from your average political pundit on Fox News or CNN.
But Ben, isn't Fox News the only reliable source of information on all things forever and always?
Yeah, but we're going to be much better than that. Speaking of reliability, a big part of reliability is knowing who is speaking to you. So, Sam, let's go into your background. What brought you to this point in your life? I understand that you worked with the Republican Party.
It's called the Republican Party, but thank you. Yeah, in the past 4 years, I've worked with 5 campaigns and staffed 2, all of which were amazing experiences, even the losses. I've also spent time on a legislative staff, working on policy research and drafting responses and such. I've also spent a lot of time with some local and statewide groups with the aim of getting the vote out in the younger demographics, which is a lot harder than you think. To summarize, I've never worked outside the Republican Party, though. Ben, you have exclusively worked outside the Republican Party, correct?
Well, I've also worked a little bit inside. At the beginning of my interest in politics, I started off being...
Jim Christiana.
Yeah. I'm currently associated with libertarianism and the Libertarian Party, but I started off as a Republican and a conservative who always had a tendency toward libertarianism. As a Republican, I worked on the campaign of Jim Christiana for Senate, but after his loss in the primaries, I started to move away from the conservative movement and Republican Party, mainly because of Lou Barletta and Donald Trump. I started to dislike the president's policies concerning tariffs and foreign intervention, so I began to work with the Libertarian Party, mainly on the campaigns of Daryl Kearns for U.S. Senate and Ken Krawczyk for governor. That ended in 2018, and I have not worked on a campaign since then, but I'm currently assessing the candidates for 2020 and considering helping a candidate who's on the slate.
Absolutely, yeah. And how many candidates, just for the record, have you helped win?
0, in fact.
Just,
but that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, matters to me. But yeah, I also think it's important to note that we're both economics majors with varying minors and such. But anyways, I think it's safe to start with something simple. I know a lot of primary results have come in, including Wisconsin and Michigan. Ben, I think you saw some results already, right? Yes, Yeah, I haven't yet, but before we go there, what's your current take on the election so far before tonight?
This election has been quite the train ride. It's had its ups and downs. Right now Biden is the clear front runner. I think we can both probably agree with that.
Now, before tonight, right?
Before tonight, yeah. Before tonight, Biden's been the clear front runner.
Who was your pick in the beginning?
In the beginning, I would love Tulsi Gabbard. She's still in the race, but she's not going to win. So, but right now, I would prefer Biden to Sanders any time of the week, any day, pretty much. But you know, I've always stuck with Tulsi as my main number one choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But she is the most moderate, right? Like
yeah, and she understands. I would say. The libertarian support she has, and
almost exclusively libertarian support at this point.
Oh
right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's some outlier Republicans and Democrats who like her, but overall, there are a lot of libertarians who stick with her, and I'd say that makes up her fan base at the moment.
Right.
So, what do you think about the election so far from your point of view?
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly, all my experiences with Republican politics, and there's really obviously nothing going on with that. Yeah, but I would have to disagree on Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think she was never my favorite, but I was a big supporter of Pete Buttigieg the entire way. I mean, as much as you can be, being that I'm Republican, but
yeah.
You know, I would have to agree with you on Bernie Sanders, though. Although being in college, I have to say it's a little bit appealing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, to have all your student loans like canceled.
Yeah, somehow.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Somehow, just magically, the magical.
Morally, I don't know if I can forgive myself, but you know, yeah, absolutely. So, I was really disappointed when Pete Buttigieg dropped out. Very surprised that the impact Tom Steyer had by dropping out. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I did. I think you followed that more closely than I did, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. I think at the time there was at least 5 major candidates. It was Bloomberg, Steyer, Buttigieg, Warren.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else? Klobuchar, I think was.
Klobuchar was still in the race.
Yeah, Tulsi always still in, obviously.
Yeah, so that makes 7, but at the same time, she didn't really have much of an impact.
Yeah, but regardless, it was very surprising to see that Steyer, as I think he was in 3rd place in most states on, what was it, Super Tuesday, and he dropped out, which is like astonishing. Like, people don't do that, and and by him doing so, all the other candidates dropped out as well, and which I guess is a noble cause if you're if you're supporting Joe Biden, but it's very disappointed because there's a lot of data that's been accrued that shows second choice preferences for all the different candidates. I know that Elizabeth Warren, I believe 2/3 of the voters that she had were supposed to, their second choice preference was Bernie Sanders, right?
Yeah, and with her dropping out and taking a really long time to endorse somebody,
I know, and
that's pretty sketchy. I'm thinking that she's gonna play politics on this one, and she might. I think there's a chance she might endorse Sanders. I mean Biden.
Biden, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
I would venture to say that Liz Warren not dropping out when she should have, arguably, would probably cause the downfall of Bernie Sanders. Yeah. I mean, unless tonight is a difference, but from your face earlier, I'm gonna assume it's not good. It's not good for Bernie.
Yeah, there's some results have released so far. I think 3 states had a results release. We're gonna look at those shortly. I looked at those. Sam didn't, and it's not looking good for.
Sam is about to. Sam is looking it up right now.
Yeah, Sam is looking at it right now. Going into this, I did not think Sanders was going to do so well. I mean, with all the Democratic candidates who've dropped out so far, with the exception of Liz Warren, endorsing him, putting their support behind him, and him campaigning in states that aren't that polarized, like California or Texas. I mean, it just it didn't look good for Sanders going in.
Well, you have to really respect the strategy Joe Biden had going into it. I mean, I guess respect is the wrong word, but he almost exclusively went for the southern states, which, as a result of having primaries at different times during the year, he really Super Tuesday was really a turning point, and he planned that.
Yeah.
People like Bernie Sanders spend their money almost equally across all states, right? Which arguably is probably the most democratic thing to do, but yeah, Joe Biden really put all of his money into the states in Super Tuesday, and I think it's paying off.
Yeah, and is it okay if I tell you results now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the biggest prize tonight is Michigan, with I think it was 153 delegates.
Yeah.
And it is projected to go to Biden.
Well, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, how much though? Or how much are we talking?
125 delegates. Right now.
120 reported.
100. That's 125 delegates in total from Michigan.
Oh, okay.
That's the.
All right. And do we have any pledged yet?
All these articles, they don't really tell you much.
Do you have any actual not that it matters because democracy is a lie, but is there any actual general vote counts yet?
I'm on CNN right now. It's not telling me much.
All right. Well, let's just talk about. Joe Biden. Let's just say he wins.
Yeah.
The majority of delegates tonight. Do you think that's the end of any actual competitive advantage?
Yeah. He also is projected to win Missouri and Mississippi too. That's like.
Here
3 out of the 5 states that have primary results today.
Biden lost Michigan.
He lost Michigan.
I think he did. Did he?
It's saying that he is leading there.
It said that if the race is called and he got less than the majority of delegates. Hold on.
But I think he was leading. At least that's when I checked last.
Michigan officials say complete primary results won't be released until Wednesday afternoon. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this entire thing really reminds, I hate caucuses.
yeah.
Can we agree that's the worst?
Is that what this is? A caucus?
No, actually it is not.
Okay.
I was just it reminded me of Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's been the scourge of this race so far.
Yeah, that screwed everything up. Typically, Iowa means so much. But
Yeah. It shouldn't, honestly.
it shouldn't mean so.
Did I tell you that it's called front loading? It's where states that don't matter put their primaries, way in the front. States like New Hampshire, they shouldn't call it, and then and the other factor that plays into this though is the demographics in those states. They're widely different than every other state, and what we see over time over the past races and such is that when the first states have demographics, when the first states that have caucuses and primaries like New Hampshire and Iowa are so widely different in demographics, it really changes the entire race. Like Bloomberg and Rudy Giuliani did this as well. They both chose to opt out of the original of the first New Hampshire and Iowa because what we find, especially in Iowa is a caucus, and caucuses mean that generally we're both economics. It's the opportunity cost of going is much higher.
Oh yeah, because like if you lose, it sends a signal to the rest of the voters.
No, actually, not even that. Just because caucuses, you actually, I don't know what it is, but I know that in order to vote in a caucus, you have to sit through hours of speeches.
Yes, yeah.
Which drastically reduces the amount of people that actually want to sit through and vote, right?
Yeah, your average Joe is not going to want to go down
Yeah,
there.
and what that means is the demographics of the people who end up voting in caucuses, they're typically highly polarized. They're typically activists,
Yeah.
You don't get your average, mom and pa going to voting. And that's why we see that's why Bernie Sanders did so well in Iowa, actually. It's because only the polarized voters really ended up coming out. But that's what caucuses and primaries, and especially front loading in general, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you told me before that you would like to have all those on like one day, like all the primaries on one day.
Oh yeah. If I were president of the United States or anything in government, my first action, I want to make national. I mean, obviously it's much harder than that. I mean, you can't just put all the because. You can't just tell states like
what to do.
Yeah.
That's not a role of the federal government.
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
I think that's where you and I differ on certain things.
I mean, in the end, I don't really care. I think that if the federal government is doing something that should be done, then it should do that thing, not be prevented by some law or a piece of paper. But I mean, at the same time, I think that a governmental body, knowing its restrictions and knowing the restrictions that the people place on it and the states that formed it placed on it is important.
Hey, you want to know some fun facts right here?
Yeah, sure.
Looks like Donald Trump won 40 of 39 delegates in Mississippi.
40 and 30.
40 of 39. Seems like a really reputable source, doesn't it?
Yeah, where what does it? So does it say that? On what site?
What is this? New York Times. Yeah. It
so-
looks like Missouri, Biden has 31 pledged delegates, and out of 68.
Yeah.
So I guess we're not done there. But the race was called for Biden.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you could probably assume he's going to get more delegates there. Michigan race was called for Biden. I'll tell you what though, I don't know if this means Bernie is done. It doesn't seem like Biden won a whopping majority.
Yeah.
Of course, that's too hard to tell right now.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue though coming back from this because I mean, he had major losses on Super Tuesday, Bernie, and he's not winning the majority in any states right now, as we see. It's gonna be hard to come back from that, but yeah, it's certainly recoverable. I mean, I don't know if it's been done before, but I think that Sanders has an energy. But I mean, I think it's certainly worn off from 2016.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I actually read an article about that earlier. I forget which source it was, but yeah, Bernie won. What was it, Mississippi or Michigan? Very, very much so. Or at least he did very well in Michigan before.
2016.
But, yeah, 2016, but I don't think they're predicting that this time.
Yeah, and then again, like Hillary Clinton wasn't as good as I wouldn't say as popular as a candidate as Joe Biden probably is, and at the same time
I wouldn't say the people are as polarized right now. I mean,
yeah.
You know, getting out of Obama and versus living through a Trump presidency.
Yeah. I get that, but it's certainly a different dynamic. I mean, like right now with I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what. I want to know right here and now, Ben. I want you to tell me and every listener, when will you renounce Tulsi Gabbard? Is it not time? She's losing, right?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter to me in the end whether they're winning or losing, because I don't think politics and like running for office is that very effective of a method to securing our liberties. But I'd support Tulsi Gabbard until the day she drops out, and the day she drops out, I'm assuming she might run for. I'm thinking she might run for go for an independent run or maybe endorse Bernie. Yeah. Well, Sam, I know you don't believe that, but I mean, I don't understand why else she would be sticking in so long.
I'll tell you what. You think she's gonna win her House race again?
Yeah, probably not. I definitely not. I think the DNC's even like revving up support for a candidate to challenge her. But I'll support Tulsi because I respect her, and I would say that her overall outlook on politics aligns more with me than with mine than any other Democratic candidate, and that's all that matters to me.
What about more than Donald Trump?
Yeah, a lot more than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he just a lot of issues he just flip flops. Like I mean, he was like pro-choice and like pro universal health care until he decided to run for the Republican nomination, and he's been a New York City Democrat for most of his life. And
I'll play devil's advocate though. I mean, arguably, you have to be a Democrat in order to do business in New York City.
Yeah, but at the same time, you look at his like what he believed in policy wise. It's just it just doesn't really add up. I mean, at the same time, I mean, like, ever since when he ran for office, he made a big deal about the deficit. He made a big deal about bad trade deals. And look, he's blown a deficit himself. I mean, like, if it's projected that by the end of if he does get another 8 years, another 4 years, that he will increase the deficit increase his national debt just as much as Obama did. And that right there, I would say is.
But no, I have a question for you though, right? Mm-hmm. So he did reduce taxes, not by a lot. I mean, comparatively a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Is that? Would you consider that a type of investment? Right? You know, we've talked about the Laffer curve before, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that the reduction in taxes for the middle class, do you think that'll eventually stimulate enough growth to the point where there will be more government revenue from that?
Well, yes, there have been gains, and I see that. But I mean, at the same time, the amount he's.
Well, I'm just asking if you think it worked. Because, I mean.
Yeah, well, if it worked for what? I mean, like, yeah, to increase revenue, yeah, it worked to some extent. But at the same time, if you're increasing the deficit to a large extent that the increased revenue does not account for that, then that's causing an issue. It really doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah.
I mean. Essentially, what they're doing is they're increasing, through the Federal Reserve quantitative easing, and like they're just financing government debt.
Yeah, no, I get it, but man, do you honestly at this point, do you even think it's possible to bring I mean, it's one thing. We used to judge presidents on whether or not they could reduce our debt, but now we're just judging them off of whether we're losing more money than the last president. I mean, it's getting to the point where you think it's even a viable strategy.
Yeah,
Or
I don't know. Considering the last president to even like erase the debt totally was Andrew Jackson, and
well, Bill Clinton made
yeah, he did
efforts though.
Yeah,
right?
he did make efforts, and sometimes he had budget surpluses. But at the same time, he did make an effort. But I mean, he didn't like even get close to like ever decreasing the national debt as much to the point where it coded.
Well, he did set in a plan, but Republicans blocked it after he left office.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, no, I get
at the
it.
same time, I mean, like, and considering that a lot of Trump supporters are actually thinking he's doing things to erase the debt, doesn't really give Trump much incentive to actually do anything.
Oh,
about the debt.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's going to be negative effects with anything like that, and yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
People already think he's doing
Yeah,
well.
and maybe if the people who supported him decided to just not support him and became very critical about him raising the debt and the deficit,
Yeah.
like came out against him, maybe he would do something and actually take that seriously. But so far, he really hasn't, and he has no reason to politically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Did I tell you about the CPAC straw poll the other day?
About Mitt Romney?
Oh
Yeah.
Just I don't know, for anyone that's listening, I love Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
I mean, you can ask Ben. Mitt Romney is my. We were just watching actually. I had a Mitt Romney documentary on just to have on while we're recording earlier.
I don't share the immense love and adoration that Sam has for Mitt Romney.
Yeah,
but,
I love Mitt Romney, but what I'm getting to though is there was a straw poll earlier.
Yeah.
it was. I think I showed you that yesterday.
in 2012 or something like.
2012, Mitt Romney was the most admired Republican at CPAC, but with a vote of over 90%. And this year, there was a question on the CPAC straw poll that asked whether you either essentially hate Mitt Romney, whether you're unsure of your opinion on Mitt Romney, or if you disagree with his policies, but think that he has a very strong voice in the Republican Party and deserves to have a strong voice. It's basically, do you hate him? Do you dislike his policies but love him? Or are you unsure? So naturally, I think it was 73% of CPAC attendees marked that they essentially hated Mitt Romney.
Yeah, it's just a very like skewed poll. Like, I mean,
Yeah, but I think the reason why I was bringing this up in the first place, I'm sorry I got off track, was that Trump's approval rating at CPAC was, I think, in the 97%.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah. It's definitely very polarizing. I just want to butt in and mention of how a former candidate, Andrew Yang, just endorsed Joe Biden.
Really?
Yeah, he just endorsed Joe Biden. And he saying that math shows he'll win the nomination. That's coming from CNN.
I'll tell you what. You know who is really close to Andrew Yang? Tulsi Gabbard.
And so is Klobuchar.
Well, Klobuchar already endorsed Biden. I'm saying this as a prediction. If Yang's endorsing Biden...
Close policy-wise. I'm not sure if they're close personally.
Well, neither was Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So, and she just endorsed Joe Biden.
Well, I don't know. I don't think... I don't think Tulsi's going to be a person to drop out after this night. I can't see her. If she didn't drop out after Super Tuesday, after people like Klobuchar...
what chance does she have at this point?
Not Super Tuesday.
What goal does she have?
That's why I'm saying I think she's going to run as independent. I mean, what? She can benefit immensely from the amount of donations and support she could get from the Democratic base. And then,
if she pulls that off... She might draw a lot of votes away from Trump.
Yeah. I don't know.
But that's highly speculative.
Yeah,
obviously, I wouldn't endorse any of that concept. But
I mean, imagine a scenario where Tulsi is an independent candidate. Because I read articles she's not going to run for Libertarian nomination. She won't. And I think it's already too late to do that anyway. And even
is it?
It is. Well, I mean, like the Libertarian... Like, she probably has a lot of Libertarian support, and since they're already, like, putting a lot of support behind Lincoln Chafee, who is a former Democratic governor, I think that...
Didn't he run for the Republican nomination before?
I'm not sure about that. I know he was a Democrat, I believe.
I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah,
it's not important to me.
Yeah, I don't know, but I feel like if Lincoln Chafee can get support in the Libertarian Party, I think Tulsi Gabbard, who I would think is more Libertarian than Lincoln Chafee, could get support behind them. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And Tulsi, if she did run as an independent, I mean, do you think she could probably draw away from a lot of progressive voters in the general election?
Perhaps. I mean, there's definitely, as much as there's polarization between the right and the left, there's definitely, maybe not as much, but there is polarization between Bernie supporters and Biden supporters. I wouldn't be surprised if, does Tulsi have a relationship with Bernie right now?
Yeah, they're pretty close. I don't think Bernie has said much stuff like criticizing Tulsi as a candidate, and Tulsi even was a big supporter of Sanders back in 2016. They are close personally and politically. Imagine if and Bernie's not even a registered Democrat. He's an independent. Imagine if Tulsi were to run. I mean, would Sanders put his support behind Tulsi, especially after how much like the Democratic Party has?
He is still independent, right?
He is. Want to go into the discussion about like the specific policies of Tulsi? People might not be familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you are probably more well versed in that than I am.
Yeah.
But
I'm more interested in Tulsi. She is more progressive, so she has a more progressive take on stuff like.
What's her stance on healthcare?
Healthcare. That was pretty unclear at the beginning, but I think she clarified that later on. I listened to a podcast where she talked about that. She wants to have. It seems to me like she wants to continue to say, universal health care, but to like appeal to the progressive base, but at the same time she wants a public option. She doesn't want to take over private health care.
So essentially it sounds like Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, it's very much like
I was very fond of Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, I think it's what she actually believes, and I think that's what she would do, but she doesn't really like talking about that because again, a lot of her support is from the progressive like voting base of the party.
It's weird. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm sure she could draw some votes from the progressive side, but are you sure that?
I don't know. I mean, as long as she gives off the appearance that she is more progressive than she actually is, that's what really matters.
Well, I'll tell you what though. I remember looking at the data before. Remember I was talking about the second choice preferences. Tulsi Gabbard was not a part of any. Well, she did not receive any votes or any choices of second choice preference. I think she got some like fourth choice, but I'm just sharing.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that I don't think that there are very, at least that data.
Yeah, but your polls, those polls. I mean, I'm not saying Tulsi gonna come out.
I will say those polls are based off of if only one candidate drops out.
Yeah, that's
how those votes will disperse. Right.
Yeah.
But I think generally speaking, though, you're right. The majority of individuals in that data were either going to move to Bernie or Biden based off of who they supported before.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Bernie isn't in there anymore, who knows? Or will Bernie run as an independent? I mean, he floated it before, didn't he?
Yeah. But he eventually did rule it out in 2016, and I mean, the Democratic Party's just like really like slammed him this time.
I mean, I'm sure he also has to think though, if Bernie runs as an independent, Biden's losing.
Yeah.
And arguably Bernie is as well.
He would probably be a much more effective candidate than Tulsi Gabbard as an independent candidate for president.
Yeah.
And
effective for Trump.
Imagine how much imagine how much effect that would have on his relationship with the Democrats in the Senate. I mean, like he currently caucuses with them. They would tear him apart.
Oh man.
That might be bad news for just the progressive movement overall. People might get polarized against them.
Perhaps.
It's like what happened to Perot? I mean, like in the 90s. I mean, like that pretty much destroyed so many people's hopes of.
I would have to say, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that there are more bridges Bernie can burn. I mean, yeah, you want to talk that Democrats are going to hate him if he runs as independent? Democrats hate him right now.
I don't know about that. I mean, he's still in the race and he's still getting a decent amount of votes.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what though. I mean, it wouldn't come to this, but I'm saying if you were to put the vote to superdelegates, which are the elected officials in the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders would lose 90% of them.
True.
And and I'm saying what that means is that I don't think he has any of the support of the establishment, and the establishment is the Democratic caucus in the Senate and so forth.
True. Yes, but I mean, they'll like him until he runs for something. the Republicans they like Ron Paul, and he's like the funny old guy who says crazy things. But then when he decided to run, I mean, they tore him down. Same thing that happened to Bernie in 2016. Oh, every day the establishment attacked him. Then he drops out. He didn't drop out. I mean, he conceded to Hillary Clinton after the DNC, after the National Committee. But I mean, he still remained to be a pretty popular figure among Democrats. He just wasn't running against anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and I think he's won. I think he's won the Democratic nominations in his home state before.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's no chance Bernie Sanders is ever losing the nomination in Vermont. I actually looked into it before. He's the first non-Republican to win that Senate seat ever in Vermont.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and when he won that seat in Vermont, I think it was in the 90s, early 2000s, which is very surprising. And now he wins it with double digits every time.
And he did it as an independent.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was independent at first.
I think he was. Yeah.
Was he really?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I remember reading his book. I forget what it was. I forget the title of the book.
You would have read his book, Ben.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm not a progressive, but his I remember talking about like playing around under the Socialist Party in the United States, but
that for a guy who has to spend his entire campaign saying he's not a socialist.
Yeah,
that's suicide.
Yeah, that would be, and plus it's not like he would win as that anyway. It would just like draw votes away from other candidates.
Yeah, but, yeah, absolutely. Well, just want to wrap this up now?
Yeah. I think this has been a pretty successful first podcast.
Much longer than I thought we'd end up.
Yeah. It has been. I'm really looking forward to what we'll be talking about in future episodes of the podcast. We'll talk more about...
Thinking Fed rates soon?
Fed rates would be cool to talk about. Talk about basically the puppet economy that we have right now.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be much more in store, especially with we're gonna be covering a lot of election results in the future. That we're gonna be covering the Republican nomination. That's hotly contested. Tim.
Yes, I do know.
Yeah. Bill Weld. He's gonna make a huge impact, right?
I tell you who I'm voting for.
Yeah.
Bill Weld.
Yeah. If I was Republican, I would do the same.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to close off.
Yeah. This is what's our name of our podcast again?
No.
Economy and State.
Economy and State.
The podcast. Thank you for joining us.